Hey folks, grab a coffee and pull up a chair because I'm about to tell you the wildest HOA Karen saga that ever tore through Willow Creek Estates. You know the kind of place I'm talking about. Those picture-perfect suburbs where the lawns look like they've been vacuumed and every mailbox matches the approved shade of tasteful beige. On the surface, it's all Sunday potlucks and kids riding bikes. But underneath, pure power-hungry madness dressed up as community standards. I'm Mike Callahan. Lived here my whole life on the old family patch that backs up to the lake. The crown jewel of our 5 acres? Grandpa's red barn, built back in 1958. That thing has sheltered cattle, stored hay, and held more family memories than the local scrapbook store. It's not just wood and nails. It's the reason my dad never sold out when the developers came sniffing around. Then Pam Whitaker showed up, fresh off some glossy magazine spread about country chic living. She rolled in with her white Range Rover, designer sunglasses permanently glued to her face, and a smile that could curdle milk. Within a year, she'd clawed her way to HOA president and decided the whole neighborhood needed a makeover, her makeover. Suddenly, the covenants weren't guidelines anymore. They were her personal holy writ. She banned chickens because odor issues, fined a widow for having the wrong shade of petunias, and threatened liens on anyone who left a basketball hoop up more than 30 minutes. Bless her heart, she actually believed she was improving property values. The first shot across my bow came on a Tuesday morning. I was sipping coffee on the porch when I spotted the bright yellow envelope taped to the barn door like some cheap wanted poster. Notice of violation. It screamed in all caps. According to Pam, my barn was an unauthorized secondary structure that had to be demolished within 30 days or I'd face a $100 a day fine. I stood there blinking at the paper, the morning sun warm on my neck, thinking surely this was a joke. That barn predated the HOA by decades. It was grandfathered in, plain as day in the original papers my grandpa had filed himself back in the 70s. I wrote a polite letter anyway, because that's what normal people do, attach copies of the old bylaws, and dropped it in the HOA mailbox. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived. This one accused me of commercial use because I stored a few tools and my fishing gear inside. $500 fine. I actually laughed out loud in the kitchen. My wife Sarah just shook her head and said, "Mike, she's not going to stop." At the next monthly meeting, Pam stood at the front in her crisp white blouse like she was running for Congress. When I tried to speak, she cut me off with that syrupy voice. "Mr. Callahan, rules evolve, darling. If you can't adapt to modern standards, perhaps Willow Creek isn't the right fit for you anymore." The room went dead quiet. A few neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but nobody said a word. That was the moment I felt the first real chill. This wasn't about paint colors or fences. This was about control. And Pam Whitaker was drunk on it. I walked out of that meeting with my jaw tight and a new plan forming in my head. I wasn't going to yell or storm out. I was going to watch, document, and wait. Because people like Pam always overplay their hand eventually. Little did I know how right I was, or how ugly things were about to get. The harassment didn't start with a bang. It crept in like poison ivy. Every morning when I left for my construction job, I'd catch one of Pam's inspectors, some retired accountant she'd recruited, lingering by the fence with a clipboard, snapping pictures of the barn like it was a crime scene. One afternoon, I walked out and caught him actually trying to peer through the side window. "Authorized inspection," he muttered without looking up. I smiled real slow and said, "Authorized by who exactly? Because last I checked, the Constitution still applies out here." He scurried off like a rat, but the message was clear. Pam wanted me to feel watched. Then the rumors started. At the feed store, I overheard old Mrs. Jenkins whispering that my barn was full of God knows what chemicals and a fire hazard to the whole community. At church, someone asked my sister Emily if it was true I was running some shady side business out there. Emily teaches 3rd grade. She came home in tears that night because parents had started side-eyeing her at school pickup. "They're saying our whole family is bringing down property values," she told me, voice cracking. I hugged her and promised we'd fix this, but inside I was boiling. Pam wasn't satisfied with just me. She hit my sister with a landscaping violation notice claiming her flower beds were non-compliant. The beds were immaculate, Emily's pride and joy. The fine? $200. When Emily showed up at the HOA office with photos, Pam just smiled that fake sweet smile and said, "Honey, aesthetics matter. We're trying to keep Willow Creek looking like the magazines." I actually laughed later when I told Sarah. She thinks we're living in a damn Pinterest board. I started keeping records like a paranoid accountant. Every notice got scanned, every conversation logged with dates and times, every rumor noted with who said what. My dining table looked like a war room. Binders, photos, timestamps. Sarah joked I was turning into a detective, but she helped anyway, printing out old county records showing the barn had been there since Eisenhower was president. The real turning point came when I finally dug out Grandpa's original HOA charter from the attic. The pages were yellow and smelled like old hay, but right there in black and white. Article 4, Section 2 protected every pre-existing agricultural building forever. Pam's updated bylaws that she waved around at meetings? They magically omitted that entire section and replaced it with vague nonsense about community aesthetics. She hadn't just bent the rules, she'd rewritten history. I showed the original documents to a couple of trusted neighbors over coffee. Mrs. Jenkins' eyes went wide. I paid $3,000 in fines last year because she said my shed was too close to the property line, she whispered. Mr. Ramirez, the veteran down the road, clenched his jaw so hard I thought he'd crack a tooth. She threatened to lean on my trailer. Called it an eyesore. The anger in that kitchen was thick enough to cut. For the first time, people weren't just scared, they were mad. Pam felt the shift. At the next meeting, she doubled down, announcing she'd hired professional security consultants to protect community standards. Translation: she was sending rent-a-cops to circle my property like vultures. I smiled across the room and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Funny, I thought the Constitution already covered that." Her face went the color of a bad sunburn. That's when I knew the game had changed. She was losing control, and people like Pam never handle that well. The real twist hit me like a freight train one rainy Thursday night. I'd requested the full HOA financials. State law says they have to hand them over, and Pam had stalled for weeks before finally sliding a suspiciously clean packet across the table with a fake smile. "Everything's in order, Michael." "Yeah, right." That night, Sarah and I spread the papers across the kitchen table. What we found made my stomach turn. 50 grand listed for road improvements, but the roads still had the same potholes I'd been dodging for years. Another 30,000 for consulting services, with no consultant named. Then I spotted the shell companies, Greenfield Strategies and Lakeshore Partners, both registered to P.O. boxes and both tied straight to Pam's husband, the big-shot developer who'd been sniffing around our properties for months. Worse, I found a county zoning proposal hidden in the back. My barn sat smack in the middle of a shaded area marked Future Luxury Townhomes. So did 3 other longtime family lots. The developer? Pam's husband's company. Every fine she'd slapped on old-timers wasn't about rules. It was about clearing the land so they could flip it for profit. The pieces clicked so loud, I actually laughed in disbelief. This wasn't petty HOA nonsense. This was straight-up organized fraud. I quietly showed the numbers to a handful of neighbors. Mr. Ramirez's face went stone cold. They offered me cash for my place right after she fined me into oblivion. Mrs. Jenkins actually cried, quiet, angry tears. I almost lost my house because of her lies. The fear that had kept everyone silent was turning into something sharper. That same week, I finally installed the security cameras on the barn. Nothing fancy, just motion-triggered ones that emailed clips straight to my phone. I didn't tell anyone. I figured if Pam was already trespassing in broad daylight, she'd get bolder at night. Boy, was I right. But the financial bombshell was the twist that changed everything. Suddenly, I wasn't just defending an old barn. I was sitting on proof of mail fraud, embezzlement, and a conspiracy to drive families out for profit. Interstate money transfers meant federal RICO charges could be on the table. Pam Whitaker wasn't just a neighborhood bully anymore. She was running a criminal enterprise wearing designer heels. I started sleeping better, strangely enough. Because now I knew exactly what I was up against, and I had the receipts. Pam, meanwhile, grew more unhinged. She started parking her SUV down the road at night, watching my place like a hawk. Once I caught her through the window and waved cheerfully. Her face in the dashboard light was priceless, pure panic wrapped in entitlement. The neighbors who'd once avoided me like the plague started slipping me their own violation notices at the grocery store. One guy actually said, "If you take her down, I've got your back." The tide was turning, and Pam could feel the water rising around her ankles. But she still thought she held the power. That's the thing about people like her. They never see the trap until the jaws snap shut. The private security showed up the next Monday like something out of a bad cop show. White SUV with Community Safety Patrol slapped on the side in fake gold lettering. Two guys in cheap uniforms started circling my property daily, headlights sweeping the barn at night, asking visitors for ID like they were border agents. Pam announced at the next meeting that it was necessary for everyone's protection. I stood up and asked, deadpan, "Protection from what exactly?" "My grandfather's hayloft." A few people actually chuckled. Pam's smile froze like cheap plastic. The rumors went nuclear. Suddenly, I was storing illegal chemicals and running a meth lab in the barn. Emily came home from school one day white as a sheet. Parents were pulling their kids from her class because the Callahan family brings instability. She broke down at the dinner table. "I love teaching Mike. I can't lose this because of her lies." That was the night Sarah and I promised each other, no more playing nice. Then the cameras caught gold. At 2:17 a.m., the motion alert buzzed my phone. There was Pam herself, flashlight in one hand, clipboard in the other, two guards flanking her. They circled the barn, tugging on doors, measuring distances, taking close-ups of every crack in the wood. At one point, Pam looked straight into the camera lens and smirked like she was daring me to do something. I saved every second. I compiled the footage into a clean timeline, date-stamped, crystal clear, her face unmistakable. When I showed a trusted neighbor the clip, he actually whispered, "Holy hell, that's criminal trespass." Another neighbor admitted she'd seen Pam's SUV idling near her own shed at midnight too. The pattern was everywhere now. Pam's desperation peaked. She started showing up at Emily's school events, casually mentioning to other parents how unfortunate the Callahan situation was. One night, the security guys blocked Emily's car in the driveway and asked her point-blank what was stored in the barn. She rolled down the window and said, voice ice cold, "None of your damn business. And if you don't move, I'm calling the real police." They backed off, but the message was clear: isolate us, break us, make us sell cheap so hubby could develop. Instead of crumbling, we doubled down. Every trespass, every rumor, every late-night headlight sweep went into the master binder. I even started timestamping Pam's SUV sightings. The file was now thicker than a phone book and twice as damning. Neighbors who'd been terrified for years began quietly feeding me copies of their own bogus finds. One lady brought me a stack at 10 p.m. under cover of darkness like we were in a spy movie. "Burn her down," she hissed. Pam thought the guards and gossip would make us fold. All she did was hand me the final nails for her own coffin. The community that once whispered behind closed doors was now whispering against her. And every single piece of evidence I collected was about to become public record in the most spectacular way possible. The morning Pam finally snapped and dialed 911 started like any other. I was fixing a loose board on the barn when the sirens sliced through the quiet. Two patrol cars crested the hill, lights flashing, followed by the sheriff's SUV. Neighbors poured out of houses like it was a block party gone wrong. And there was Pam, arms crossed, standing at the edge of my driveway like she'd just won the lottery. She rushed the deputies, waving her fake packet of evidence. "It's a danger to the whole community. He's storing hazardous materials. You have to shut it down right now." Her voice carried that perfect mix of fake panic and triumph. The sheriff, a man who'd known my grandpa, listened with a stone face. Then he turned to me. "You got anything to say, Mike?" I handed him my binder. The original bylaws. The security footage on a thumb drive. The financial records showing the embezzlement. The zoning maps proving the development scam. Everything. Pam's face went the color of spoiled milk. The sheriff flipped pages, watched the nighttime video of Pam trespassing, and his expression hardened. "Ma'am, you just filed a false emergency report. You've been trespassing repeatedly. And these documents don't match the originals on file with the county." Pam sputtered. "I'm the HOA president. I have authority." The sheriff didn't even raise his voice. "You don't have authority to break the law, ma'am. Turn around." Handcuffs clicked. The whole neighborhood watched in stunned silence as Pam Whitaker, Queen of Willow Creek, was marched to the patrol car. A few people actually started slow clapping. "Mrs. Jenkins yelled, "About damn time." What followed was pure domino effect. Investigators raided the HOA office and Pam's house the next day. The shell companies got shut down. Her husband's development permits were frozen. Federal charges landed: mail fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The old bylaws were restored. Fines got refunded. The community voted in new rules requiring open books and resident approval for anything big. The barn still stands today, red paint faded but proud. Kids play in its shadow again. Emily got a public apology from the school board. And Pam, she's serving time and banned from any HOA board for life. I still walk past that barn every evening and think about Grandpa's words. As long as this barn stands, we belong here. Turns out he was right. Bullies only win when good people stay quiet. We stopped staying quiet. And justice, sweet, handcuff-clicking justice, finally showed up wearing a sheriff's badge. So if you're dealing with your own HOA nightmare, keep every receipt, every video, every timestamp. Because one day that binder might just become the thing that brings the whole house of cards down. And when it does, oh man, the satisfaction is worth every sleepless night.